A year when rock didn't just evolve, it exploded. From muddy fields that became legendary to rooftops that witnessed history, from peaceful festivals to tragic endings, this was the year that showed us both the highest highs and darkest lows of rock and roll. Picture this. It's a cold London afternoon and office workers are going about their business when suddenly the sound of "Get Back" starts echoing through the streets. Looking up, they see four familiar silhouettes on a rooftop, playing what would become their final live performance together. The Beatles' Rooftop concert took place on January 30th, with the band performing for the last time atop their Apple Records building at 3 Savile Row. What started as a simple idea for their Get Back sessions turned into an unplanned concert that brought London to a standstill. For 42 minutes, John, Paul, George, and Ringo delivered an intimate yet public performance that captured the essence of what made them legendary. The setlist was stripped down but powerful, featuring multiple takes of songs that would later appear on their final album. When the police finally arrived to shut down the disturbance, Paul McCartney's famous last words as a performing Beatle were prophetic. "I'd like to say thank you on behalf of the group and ourselves, and I hope we pass the audition." This wasn't just a concert. It was the closing of the most influential chapter in rock history, broadcast live to the world below and captured forever on film. Led Zeppelin's debut album was released on January 13, 1969 in the United States, introducing the world to a sound that would define hard rock for decades to come. But this wasn't just another album release. It was the birth of a phenomenon. Recorded in just 36 hours at Olympic Studios in London, the album was created by four musicians who had barely been together long enough to learn each other's names. Jimmy Page, fresh from his Yardbirds days, had assembled Robert Plant, John Paul Jones, and John Bonham into what he initially called the New Yardbirds. The album's explosive opening, that iconic Good Times, Bad Times drum fill followed by Plant's wailing vocals, announced that something entirely new had arrived. From the thunderous Dazed and Confused to the delicate Black Mountainside, Led Zeppelin showcased a dynamic range that nobody had heard before. By December 27, 1969, Led Zeppelin II reached #1 on Billboard, displacing Abbey Road, proving that this wasn't just a flash in the pan. Led Zeppelin had permanently altered rock's DNA. Abbey Road was released on the 26th of September 1969 and is the last album the group recorded, although Let It Be was the last album completed before the band's breakup in April 1970. But calling Abbey Road just another Beatles album would be like calling the Mona Lisa just another painting. By 1969, the Beatles were fracturing. The sessions for what would become Let It Be had been tense and unproductive. But when they returned to Abbey Road Studios, the place where their magic had first been captured, something clicked one final time. The album's seamless side 2 medley, stretching from You Never Give Me Your Money to The End, represented the band at their most musically adventurous. Paul's bass lines had never been more melodic, John's songwriting never more introspective, George's guitar work never more integral, and Ringo's drumming never more musical. The famous crosswalk photo wasn't just album art, it was four friends taking their final walk together as the world's biggest band. Every step captured in that image represented the end of an era that had defined the decade. The Woodstock Music and Art Fair was held from August 15th to 18, 1969, on Max Yasgur's dairy farm in Bethel, New York, as 500,000 people waited for the 3-day music festival to start. Billed as an Aquarian exposition, 3 days of peace and music, Woodstock became the defining moment of the counterculture movement. What was supposed to be a paid concert for 50,000 people turned into a free festival for nearly 500,000 when the crowds overwhelmed the organizers' ability to collect tickets. Though 3-day tickets were sold ahead of time for $18, the festival eventually became a free concert due to the unexpected crowds. The lineup read like a who's who of rock royalty. The organizers signed rock stars including Jimi Hendrix, Sly and the Family Stone, The Who, The Grateful Dead, Janis Joplin, The Jefferson Airplane, Ravi Shankar, and Country Joe. But it wasn't just about the music. It was about proving that this generation could create something beautiful together. 32 acts performed during the sometimes rainy weekend in front of nearly 500,000 concert-goers, but the real star was the audience itself. Despite the rain, mud, food shortages, and logistical nightmares, the crowd remained peaceful and unified. They had created their own temporary nation built on music, love, and shared ideals. Jimi Hendrix performed as the last act of the festival, though due to several delays, he didn't take the stage until Monday morning. His psychedelic interpretation of the Star-Spangled Banner at dawn became one of the most iconic moments in rock history. A guitar crying out the complexities of America during its most turbulent era. The swinging 60s came to a sobering halt when Brian Jones, founding member and original leader of the Rolling Stones, was found dead in his swimming pool at his Cotchford farm. The circumstances surrounding his death remained mysterious and troubling. Jones had been the creative force behind the early Stones, introducing them to blues masters like Robert Johnson and pushing them toward experimentation. His multi-instrumental talents and flamboyant style had helped define the band's early sound. But by 1969, his drug use and erratic behavior had led to his dismissal from the group just weeks before his death. The tragedy sent shockwaves through the rock community. Here was a founding member of one of the world's biggest bands, dead at 27, the first of what would tragically become known as the 27 Club. His death marked the end of the carefree experimentation of the mid-60s and the beginning of a darker, more cautious era. The Rolling Stones, devastated but determined to honor their fallen friend, decided to proceed with their planned free concert in Hyde Park just 2 days later. Mick Jagger read Percy Shelley's Oddity as a tribute, and hundreds of white butterflies were released into the London sky. It was both a celebration of Jones's life and a somber acknowledgement that the party was over. When The Who released Tommy in May 1969, they didn't just release a double album, they created an entirely new art form. This wasn't just a collection of songs. It was rock's first successful concept album that told a complete story from beginning to end. Pete Townshend's ambitious tale of a deaf, dumb, and blind kid who becomes a pinball champion tapped into themes of trauma, healing, and spiritual awakening that resonated with a generation questioning everything around them. The album's narrative complexity matched its musical innovation, incorporating elements of classical music, Eastern spirituality, and hard rock into one cohesive work. Tommy proved that rock music could be more than 3-minute pop songs or blues progressions. It could be literature, theater, and symphony all wrapped into one. The album's success paved the way for every concept album that followed, from Pink Floyd's The Wall to Green Day's American Idiot. The Who's live performances of Tommy were theatrical events that previewed what rock concerts could become. With Townshend's windmill guitar work, Roger Daltrey's powerful vocals, John Entwistle's thunderous bass, and Keith Moon's explosive drumming, they turned concert halls into temples of rock opera. Just 5 days before Neil Armstrong stepped foot on the moon, David Bowie released Space Oddity, a haunting tale of Major Tom, an astronaut lost in space. David Bowie's single Space Oddity was a major hit in the UK and coincided with the US moon landing. The timing wasn't coincidental, it was prophetic. While the world celebrated humanity's greatest technological achievement, Bowie offered a more complex meditation on isolation, disconnection, and the cost of reaching for the stars. His Major Tom wasn't a hero, he was a tragic figure, cut off from ground control and drifting helplessly through space. The song's innovative use of the stylophone, its cinematic structure, and Bowie's theatrical delivery marked the beginning of his transformation from folk singer to rock chameleon. Space Oddity didn't just launch Bowie's career. It launched an entirely new approach to rock music that was literary, theatrical, and deeply philosophical. The BBC used Space Oddity in their coverage of the Apollo 11 mission, creating a surreal juxtaposition between humanity's triumph and the song's melancholic warning about the loneliness of progress. After nearly a decade of movie soundtracks and formulaic recordings, Elvis Presley stepped back onto a Las Vegas stage and reminded the world why he was called the King. His return to live performance was a resurrection, which hit the #1 on U.S. charts, proving that rock and roll's original rebel still had the power to move audiences. The black leather suit was gone, replaced by white jumpsuits that became iconic in their own right, but the raw energy and magnetic stage presence remained unchanged. The '68 comeback special had reignited interest in Elvis as a serious performer, but it was his Vegas residency that proved his staying power. Night after night, he delivered performances that combined the hip-swiveling sexuality of his youth with the mature artistry of a seasoned entertainer. Songs like Suspicious Minds and In the Ghetto showed an Elvis who had grown as both a vocalist and interpreter of songs. His voice, deeper and more nuanced than in his rockabilly days, could handle everything from tender ballads to thunderous rockers with equal conviction. If Woodstock represented the dreams of the counterculture movement, Altamont represented its nightmares. The Altamont Speedway Free Festival was held on Saturday, December 6, 1969, at the Altamont Speedway outside of Tracy, California, with approximately 300,000 people attending. It was supposed to be Woodstock West. Instead, it became rock's darkest day. The Rolling Stones, riding high from their successful American tour, decided to cap it off with a free concert. The Grateful Dead, Jefferson Airplane, the Flying Burrito Brothers, Crosby, Nash and Young and Santana were also performing. But unlike Woodstock's peaceful vibe, tension filled the air from the start. The decision to hire the Hells Angels as security, reportedly paid in beer, proved catastrophic. Rolling Stones lead singer Mick Jagger was punched in the face shortly after he arrived. The Jefferson Airplane's Marty Balin was slugged and knocked out. Members of the Hells Angels beat concertgoers with pool cues. The violence reached its horrific climax during the Stones' set. It was during the Rolling Stones set that a 21-year-old Hells Angel named Alan Passaro stabbed an 18-year-old attendee named Meredith Hunter to death just 20 feet in front of the stage where Mick Jagger was performing Under My Thumb. The killing was captured on film because a documentary crew was making the film called Gimme Shelter, preserving forever the moment when the '60s dream of peace, love, and music turned into a nightmare of violence and death. In retrospect, some commentators have concluded that the violence signaled the end of the hippie movement. And there you have it, 9 moments from 1969 that changed everything. From the Beatles' final bow to Elvis's triumphant return, from Woodstock's muddy fields to Altamont's tragic violence, 1969 showed us that rock and roll wasn't just music. It was a force that could unite or divide, heal or harm, inspire or devastate. These weren't just concerts or album releases, they were cultural turning points that revealed both the incredible power and dangerous responsibility that came with rock's influence. The decade that had begun with such optimism ended with the sobering realization that music, like any powerful force, could be used for both creation and destruction. If this journey through rock's most pivotal year resonated with you, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into the moments that shaped music history. Drop a comment and let us know which of these 9 moments hit you hardest. This is Keep Talking Retro, and we'll see you next time when we continue exploring the stories behind the songs that changed the world.